Lord have mercy, it's rainin' again. Not just any rain, mind you, that soft, steady kind that taps on the porch roof like it's got a secret to tell. Been comin' down all mornin'. And you know, funny thing about summer rain, it don't just water the grass. Sometimes it waters the past, too. Just now I opened the window to let in a little breeze, and that smell wet earth, honeysuckle, and that old wood from the peach tree out back, well, it near knocked the breath out of me. Took me straight back to 1967. Straight back to him. Now, sugar, you probably thinkin', who's him? And I don't blame you. I've gone 60-odd years barely whisperin' that part of my story. Kept it folded up in the corners of my mind like one of Mama's old quilts, you know, the ones you don't pull out unless the chill goes deep. But today feels different. I've been thinking about you, Lily. Heard from your mama you ran off after that boy up and broke your heart. And I don't aim to scold you, Lord knows. I've felt that ache too. It's got a way of sittin' behind your ribs and squeezin' every time you try to breathe normal. You young folks wouldn't understand it comin' from me, I reckon. 65 and wrinkled like a paper bag, what could I know about love? But let me tell you something, just 'cause the hair turns white don't mean the heart forgets how it once skipped a beat. That summer, I can still feel it. I was 23, full of vinegar and dreams I didn't know what to do with. We had a little juke joint called the Blue Lantern out by the old mill road. Every Saturday night, the town would come alive with trumpet sounds and girls in their best dresses, smellin' of gardenia and aquanet. But that one night, Lord, that night, I walked out the door into a summer storm that changed everything. Changed me. I didn't know it then, but I was about to meet someone who lived in the quiet corners of my heart longer than anyone else ever would. And now, all these years later, I still see it, the rain catchin' the light from the neon sign, my shoes slippin' on the wet steps, and then, his hand, his voice, his laugh. Danny. Sweet, sweet Danny. I don't even have a photograph of him, ain't that something? Just a memory, like a firefly in a jar. It flickers when it wants to, usually when I least expect it. Like today. Like right now. And I know I oughta be fixin' lunch or waterin' my plants, but this memory's pullin' at me like the tide. So I figured, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time I finally speak it out loud. For you. So you don't think you're foolish for feelin' so much. So you know that love, even when it's brief, even when it don't end the way you hope it matters, it changes you. Sometimes forever. You know, people always say, life goes on. And it does. But it don't mean the past don't sit down beside you every now and again, hold your hand, and whisper, remember me? So, if you'll sit a spell, I'll tell you a story. A story about a girl in a red dress, a boy with Texas in his voice, and one dance under the rain that I never, not for a single breath, forgot. But let me ask you something before we begin, darlin'. When was the last time you remembered someone who never really left, even when they were gone? Land sakes alive, sometimes I wonder how different life seemed back then. I was just a girl growing up in Florala, Alabama, a sleepy little town where everybody knew your name and your business, and probably your grandma's, too. I remember the way the sun used to stretch its golden fingers across our front porch in the early morning, wicking me with that soft light that felt like a warm hug. I was just about 10 years old when I first learned what it meant to really love the smell of summer, fresh-cut grass, honeysuckle vines winding round the fence, and the sweet scent of peaches from the tree my pa planted behind our house. That tree was my secret place, where I'd sit and dream about things too big for a little girl to say out loud. Back in my day, things moved slow, real slow, and that was just the way it was. We didn't have the fancy gadgets or the hustle and bustle you see nowadays. Folks worked hard, sure, but they always found time for a kind word, a smile, or a helping hand. I was raised by my mama and daddy, both born and bred right there in Florala. Daddy was a gentle man, quiet but steady, with hands worn from years of farming. Mama was the heart of our home, baking pies, singing old hymns on Sunday mornings, and always reminding me that kindness was the currency that mattered most. "You treat folks like you want to be treated," she'd say, her eyes twinkling. "And you'll find your way, Ruthie." Oh, I was a curious one, always asking questions that made grown-ups chuckle. I dreamed of seeing the world beyond those pine trees and dirt roads, of wearing a dress that twirled and having a life filled with music and laughter. But mostly, I believed in the goodness of people. I thought if you were kind and true, the world would come round just right. That's what I carried in my heart, that and a whole lot of hope. By the time I was a young woman, just stepping out into the world, Florala felt like both a cradle and a cage. On one hand, it was comfort, the familiar faces, the steady rhythm of Sunday church and Saturday night dances at the Blue Lantern. On the other, I longed for something more, something that felt like magic or adventure. I wasn't married then, just a girl with wild hair and even wilder dreams, ready to see what life had in store. I often sat on the porch swing, thinking about the future, wondering if I'd find a love that felt like home, but also like a spark. My mama used to say, "Darlin', love's a funny thing. It don't always come when you want it, and it sure don't always stay. But it leaves a mark on your soul, whether you like it or not." I didn't fully understand that then, not until much later. But even back then, I believed in that mark. I believed in people coming back, that if someone was meant for you, they'd find their way back somehow. That's what kept me holding on, through the quiet nights and the lonely days. The world around me was small but full of stories. Neighbors gathering for potlucks, kids chasing fireflies in the fields, the smell of freshly baked bread drifting from Mrs. Jenkins' kitchen down the street. Life was simple, but it was rich in ways you don't always see when you're caught up in the rush. And me? I was just a young girl standing on the edge of everything, full of questions, full of dreams, and not yet knowing the dance life was about to lead me into. Looking back now, with all these years between me and that time, I can still feel that hopeful heart beating inside me. That girl with a head full of dreams and a soul wide open to love and laughter. And I reckon that's the part of me that never really left, that part that still listens for the sound of rain on the roof and wonders what might have been. So, sweetheart, before we move on, tell me this. What dreams did you hold on to when the world felt too big or too quiet? I'll tell you what, sometimes life has a funny way of sneaking up on you when you least expect it. That summer evening in '67 was just like any other at first. The sun had slipped behind the trees, and folks were headed out to the little club down by the railroad tracks, the Blue Lantern. I was with my best friend, Mary Lou, laughing and feeling young in a way you only do before the world starts teaching you its hard lessons. We didn't know it then, but that night was going to change everything, and all it took was one moment, one touch, one smile from a stranger who came out of nowhere. I remember how the rain started just as we stepped out the door. It wasn't one of those cold, bitter downpours that make you want to run for cover. No, this rain was soft and warm, like the sky was just weeping with joy. My shoes slipped on the steps, and I stumbled, nothing serious, just a little stumble that felt like the whole world had paused. And then, his hand was there, steady and gentle, catching me before I fell. That was Danny. His voice was smooth, with a Texas drawl that made you feel like you were sitting on the porch, sipping sweet tea on a hot afternoon. "You okay, darlin'?" he asked, and I swear my heart skipped a beat. I couldn't explain it, that quick thump inside my chest, like it was trying to tell me something important. He wasn't from around here. Came down from Texas, just for a little while, to visit his cousin who played in the band. That was about all I knew, but somehow in those moments, it felt like I'd known him forever. We stood there on the wet steps, rain soaking through our clothes, and he slipped his coat over my shoulders without a word. That small kindness, it stayed with me. I never forgot how that coat smelled, a mix of leather and summer air. Then, without any music, we danced. Just the two of us, in the rain, under the flickering glow of the club's neon sign. It was the kind of dance that doesn't need a song. It's in your bones and your breath, in the way your fingers find theirs without trying. Danny looked at me with those bright eyes and said something I still carry with me. "You smell like peach jam and the wind." I laughed, a soft, surprised laugh, because who says things like that? But it was true, wasn't it? That summer smell, the sweetness of youth and possibility wrapped up in a single moment. I'll admit, I was scared too. Scared of feeling something so sudden and so strong. I wasn't the kind to fall easy, Lord have mercy now, but there was something about Danny that pulled me in like a magnet. My mind raced with questions, but my heart didn't want to listen. I kept telling myself, this is just a summer thing. It'll pass. But deep down, I knew better. That night, after the rain stopped and the world smelled fresh and new, I walked home feeling like I was carrying a secret in my pocket. Something precious, fragile, and full of promise. I didn't know it then, but that moment, that encounter, was the start of a story I'd tell myself over and over for the rest of my days. You see, it's funny how life works. Sometimes the people who leave the biggest marks are the ones who only stay for a heartbeat. But that heartbeat? Oh, honey, it can echo for a lifetime. And I want you to think on this. Have you ever met someone who changed everything, even if only for a moment? What did your heart tell you then? Land sakes alive, life ain't never been easy, not for me. That summer, after I met Danny, things started to get complicated. You see, when you live in a small town like Florala, folks have opinions, and Lord, do they make sure you hear 'em. It was all whispers and sideways glances before I even knew what was happening. "Who's that boy from Texas?" they'd ask. "Why you dancing in the rain with him?" Mama was worried too, bless her heart. She'd say, "Ruthie, you gotta be careful. People talk, and you don't want to get caught up in something that'll break your heart." But how do you tell a heart not to feel? That's what I wondered night after night. The truth was, Danny had to leave real quick. The very next morning, his daddy had a stroke back in Texas. He was gone before I woke up, without so much as a proper goodbye. I sat on the porch, watching that same peach tree sway in the breeze, feeling like my world had just spun off its axis. I wanted to cry out loud, but I kept it all inside. We made do with what we had. That's what Mama always said, but I felt like I was emptying out. And then there was my own family. My daddy, usually quiet and steady, looked at me with something I hadn't seen before, disappointment mixed with worry. My mama tried to hold the peace, but I knew she was scared, too. In those days, girls didn't chase boys from out of town, especially ones with no clear future. I was torn between the hope Danny gave me and the life I was supposed to live. That old town's expectations felt like a heavy quilt, weighing me down and making it hard to breathe. I kept asking myself, what am I supposed to do now? I was scared that if I let myself hope too much, I'd be crushed all over again. Scared of what people would say, scared of letting down the folks who loved me. And Lord have mercy, the shame. It sat on my chest like a stone, making me shrink smaller and smaller. But nobody saw that. To them, I was just Ruthie, the girl who'd lost her chance. My best friend Mary Lou stood by me as best she could, bringing me lemonade on hot afternoons and listening when the tears came unbidden. But even she couldn't take away the knot in my stomach, that gnawing feeling that maybe this was all just a dream I'd woken up from. And I reckon that's when the real battle began, not with Danny gone, but inside me, where I was trying to figure out who I was without him. I remember sitting in my room one evening, the summer light fading, and wondering if I'd ever feel whole again. I'd think, maybe I'm just foolish chasing after a boy who was never meant to stay. But then my heart would whisper back, that kind of love don't come often. Don't you forget it. I kept that whisper close, like a secret candle flickering in the dark. And that's when the choice started to take shape. Do I hold on to the hope of Danny, or do I let go and try to find a different kind of peace? It was a hard road, full of doubts and lonely nights. But I reckon that's how life teaches us, by pushing us into the storm so we can learn to find shelter inside ourselves. So, darling, I want you to think about this. Have you ever had to choose between holding on and letting go? What did your heart tell you then? I remember it like it was yesterday, though it's been more than 50 years. That morning when the world stopped for me, when time itself seemed to freeze in that heavy Alabama air. I was still half asleep, sitting on the edge of my bed when the letter came. Not the one I'd hoped for, no, but a silence where words should have been. Danny was gone, not just for the night or the week, but for good, pulled away by a stroke that had claimed his daddy and called him back to Texas. Just like that, the boy who danced with me under the rain slipped through my fingers like smoke. I remember the clock ticking on the wall, but all I could hear was the thunder in my chest. My hands trembled, and I felt so small, like a child lost in the woods, without a map or a friend to guide her home. I tried to hold on to hope, to believe there'd be a letter, a call, something to tell me he was still out there, thinking of me. But days turned into weeks, and all that was left was the echo of his laugh in my mind and the memory of his coat draped over my shoulders. I'd never known such a deep kind of pain before. It wasn't just sadness, it was a hollowness, like someone had taken the light right out of the room. The kind of loss that doesn't just touch your heart, but settles into your bones. I thought I'd lose myself in that emptiness, drown in the what-ifs and maybe tomorrows. I wanted to scream, to cry, but mostly I just sat there, caught between disbelief and a slow, creeping numbness. And then came the letter, or rather, the absence of it. I sent one to the address his cousin gave me, hoping against hope. The reply was brief, cold. He no longer lives here. Those words were like a slap, hard and unforgiving. It was like the whole world told me to forget, to move on, but my heart wasn't ready to listen. That's when I understood something profound. Some stories don't get the endings we want. Some loves don't come wrapped up with a bow. They leave us with questions and quiet nights and memories that feel both like a blessing and a burden. I lost him that day, but I also found a part of myself I didn't know I had, the strength to carry on even when everything feels broken. It changed me, that moment. Made me more cautious, sure. Made me wary of letting my heart leap so freely again. But it also taught me about the beauty of a love so fierce it burns bright, even if only for a little while. I carried Danny with me in silence for years, in the way the rain smells in June, in the way the sun sets over the peach tree, in the whisper of a Texas drawl on a summer breeze. And if you ask me what I learned, I'd say this. Sometimes the hardest goodbyes are the ones that teach us how to love ourselves better. Sometimes the love that breaks us open is the very love that makes us whole. So before I move on, I want to ask you, child, have you ever had a goodbye so deep it changed who you are forever? How did you find your way back? Lord have mercy, after such a storm, there's always that long quiet, the kind that settles deep inside your bones. I reckon you know what I mean. That hollow feeling when the noise dies down, and all you're left with is the sound of your own heart beating in an empty room. That's how it was for me after Danny left, after the hope slipped through my fingers like water and the world around me felt colder, somehow. I was 24, and suddenly the future I dreamed of looked different. The sky was still blue, the peach trees still stood tall in the backyard, but inside, I felt smaller, lost. Like I'd been carrying a heavy sack, and finally set it down, only to realize that suck was part of who I was. I'd been full of fire and dreams, and now I was learning what it meant to live with a quiet ache that never quite went away. I threw myself into the days, into the routines Mama and Daddy had taught me: cooking, cleaning, keeping the house just right. It was all I could do to keep from falling apart. The townsfolk saw the dutiful girl, the one who smiled politely and said her prayers at church. But inside was a storm that no one saw. I missed Danny, not just the boy, but the idea of what we might have had. And I missed the me who believed love was simple and good. I started to wonder if maybe love was just a trick the heart played on itself, if kindness and goodness really meant anything at all. You young folks wouldn't understand, Mama would say, trying to soothe my restless mind. But I did understand. I understood that sometimes the world doesn't give you the answers you want. Sometimes it just asks you to keep walking anyway. I felt like I was walking through a fog, every step uncertain. My faith wavered, not in God, no, but in the people around me, and in myself. I wondered if I was strong enough to carry on, if I was worthy of love at all. The loneliness crept in like the chill before a storm, wrapping its fingers around my heart on nights when the house was too quiet and the shadows too long. And yet, somehow, I kept moving. I learned to make peace with that quiet, to listen to the soft whispers of hope that still lingered beneath the sadness. I found comfort in small things: the hum of the summer cicadas, the smell of fresh-baked bread, the gentle call of the bluebirds at dawn. They reminded me that life keeps on, even when it don't look the way you planned. That quiet time shaped me, made me softer in some ways, harder in others. It taught me that loss doesn't mean the end, but a new beginning, even if that beginning feels slow and lonely at first. I wasn't the same girl who danced in the rain that summer night. No, I was different. Wiser, maybe. More cautious, certainly. But still, somehow, still holding on to the smallest flicker of that wild, hopeful girl inside. So, my dear Lily, if you ever find yourself in that quiet place, where the world feels empty and your heart feels heavy, remember this: you're not alone. And sometimes, the most important thing you can do is just breathe. One breath at a time. Let me ask you this, sweet girl. When you're wrapped in silence and sorrow, what keeps you going? You know, honey, life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. Just when you think you've seen the bottom, when the nights feel longest and the silence loudest, sometimes something or someone comes along and turns the whole thing around. It don't always happen with a bang. Sometimes it's just a quiet whisper, a gentle nudge that wakes up the part of you thought had gone to sleep for good. For me, that moment came not with a new love or a grand gesture, but with something simple. I started helping out at the church food pantry, just small things like handing out canned goods or talking a smile to someone who looked like they needed it. I remember the first time I did it, I was nervous, unsure if I even had the strength to give when I felt so empty inside. But Lord have mercy, what I got back was more than I ever gave. See, when you give a little kindness, it comes back to you tenfold. Those smiles, those thank yous, they stirred something inside me. It was like a spark in the dark, reminding me that even after loss, there's still a way forward. It was the kind of hope that don't shout or parade itself around, but quietly blooms, just like the wildflowers that pop up on the side of the road after a spring rain. I started to find joy in the little things again: the sound of children Logan at the park, the way the sun set over my porch in the evenings, the soft hum of the neighborhood. And with that joy came a new kind of strength, a gentle but steady pull to move beyond the shadows I'd been living in. I even took up gardening again, tending to the peach tree behind the house that had always been my sanctuary. Planting seeds, watching them grow, It was a reminder that life goes on, no matter how broken things seem. The earth don't hold grudges, it just keeps giving, keeping faith in tomorrow. That second chance at hope didn't erase the past, no ma'am. The memories of Danny and those early dreams still lingered like a soft melody in the background, but they didn't weigh me down anymore. Instead, they became part of the rhythm of my days, a quiet song of what was and what might still be. Sometimes, I'd catch myself Logan again, real laughter that bubbles up from the soul. And I'd think, maybe this old heart still has a little fight left in it. That fight wasn't about chasing after what was lost, but about embracing what still could be a life filled with meaning, love in different forms, and peace. So, Lily, if you're listening and your heart feels heavy, know this: you're stronger than you think. And sometimes the smallest step, a smile, a helping hand, a seed planted in hope, can be the start of something beautiful. Before I let you go for now, I want to ask you, what's one small thing that's given you hope when you needed it most? You know, darling, there comes a time in every life when you have to make a choice. A real, honest choice. And for me, that time came after years of holding on to memories like precious stones and carrying the weight of what might have been. I reckon I held my heart in my hands for so long, afraid to let it go, afraid to live without the shadow of Danny walking beside me. But one day, something inside me whispered that it was time. Time to set down the burden and step into the light, even if that light looked different than what I imagined. I still remember that afternoon clear as the summer sky. I was sitting on my porch, watching the sun dip low behind the trees, when I found myself holding an old letter, one I'd never sent, never showed anyone. It was my last goodbye to Danny, the one I wrote when hope was starting to fade, but my heart just wouldn't quit. I read those words aloud, slow and careful, feeling every tear fall like rain on dry earth. And then, I did something I hadn't done before. I folded that letter, kissed it softly, and put it in the fire pit out back. I watched the flames swallow the paper, the smoke rising up and carry in my pain away. It wasn't about forgetting, no ma'am. It was about releasing the hold that past had on me, so I could breathe free again. That moment was like a balm on my soul. Like the first deep breath after holding it too long. I chose to live, not just survive, but truly live, without chains of regret or sorrow. I told myself, Ruth, you've done your time in the shadows. Now it's your turn to dance in the sun. And that's exactly what I set out to do. It wasn't easy, mind you. Old habits die hard, and the heart is stubborn. But day by day, I learned to let go of the what-ifs and if-onlys. I found peace in the here and now, in the laughter of my children, the comfort of my little yellow house, and the gentle visits from the bluebirds that seemed to sing just for me. I realized that my story didn't have to be defined by a love lost long ago, but by the love I carry every day for my family, for the simple beauty in the world, and most importantly, for myself. I want you to know, Lily, that accepting doesn't mean giving up. It means finding strength in your scars and choosing hope over hurt. It means saying to yourself, I am more than my past. I am enough. And that, my dear, is one of the bravest things you'll ever do. So, before I close this chapter, I want to ask you this. What part of your story are you ready to let go of, so you can step into the light? You know, child, I've been sitting here a long time thinking about all these years, the good and the bad, the rain and the sunshine, the love and the loss. And if there's one thing life's taught me, it's that time has a way of changing everything and nothing all at once. It's funny how the things that once seemed so heavy, so urgent, can soften into lessons that hold you steady when the storms roll in. Back in those days, I thought love was supposed to be simple, that if it was meant to be, it'd be easy too. But Lord have mercy, life's never that kind, is it? I learned that love doesn't always come wrapped in the way we imagine. Sometimes it comes quick and bright like a flash of lightning, leaving you dazzled and breathless. Other times, it's slow and steady, growing roots deep enough to hold you through any wind. And sometimes, love's just a memory that lives quietly in your heart, teaching you more about yourself than anyone else ever could. I reckon the biggest truth I've come to hold is this: love isn't just about holding on. Sometimes it's about knowing when to let go. That doesn't mean forgetting or pretending it never mattered. No, it means giving yourself permission to live fully, even when the past is still there, whispering in the quiet moments. I used to wait. Oh, how I waited. For a letter that never came, for a chance that slipped away, for a life that looked different in my dreams. But over the years, I learned that waiting can be a kind of prison, a place where time stands still and hope withers like a flower without sun. And maybe, just maybe, the real courage comes when you decide to step out of that prison, to stop holding your breath and start breathing again. That's the kind of wisdom I want to share with you, Lily. Not the preaching kind, but the kind that comes from living through the hard parts and coming out the other side a little wiser, a little softer, and a whole lot stronger. Maybe it's time to stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to be happy. Maybe it's time to take that first step toward the life you're meant to live, even if it's scary, even if it's uncertain. I know it ain't easy. Believe me, I do. But here's the thing, you're worth it. Your heart is worth the risk, the pain, and the beauty that comes with truly living. And while some loves fade, the love you have for yourself can be the strongest light you carry through any darkness. So, I'll leave you with this thought. Maybe it's time to stop waiting for what's lost and start dancing with what's right in front of you. Well now, sugar, here we are at the end of this little journey I've been sharing with you. You've been sitting here with me, listening to a story that's as old as the rain and as fresh as the morning sun. And I want you to know, this ain't just about the past. No, ma'am. It's about right here, right now, about the love and the loss that live inside each of us, no matter how many years have come and gone. I reckon you might be wondering, does true love really come back? Does it find its way home through the twists and turns of life? Well, I'll be honest with you, I don't rightly know. Sometimes, when the summer rain starts falling and the world grows quiet, I swear I can feel Danny's hand on my elbow just like that night so long ago. And in those moments, I wonder if maybe, just maybe, he's thinking of me too. Maybe love doesn't really leave. Maybe it stays in the softest corners of our hearts, waiting for us to remember. This story I've told you, it's more than just memories and old feelings. It's a whisper to anyone who's ever loved and lost, a gentle reminder that love's not just about holding on or letting go. It's about living with the courage to feel deeply, no matter the pain or the joy. It's about finding peace in the moments in between, the ones we don't always see, but that shape who we are. And now, I want to ask you, from my heart to yours, what does love mean to you? And do you believe some loves are meant to come back, even if just in our dreams? Maybe you'll never know for sure. Maybe that's part of the beauty, the mystery that keeps our hearts open, keeps us looking for that soft rain on a warm summer night, and the dance we never quite forgot. Thank you for sharing this time with me, for listening to an old woman's story told on a cracked vinyl and a soft summer breeze. I hope you carry a little of this with you, like a secret song humming just beneath your skin. And if you ever find yourself caught in the rain, remember, you're never truly alone. Sometimes, love finds a way to come home.